Claremont House, Surrey. The early hours of November 6, 1817. In a ground-floor bedroom, a 21-year-old woman has just come through 50 hours of labor. Her son has been born dead, and yet, for a few hours, she seems to be recovering. She has spoken. She has drunk a little wine and joked that it made her feel tipsy. Her husband is at the bedside. The worst, everyone in the room believes, is behind her. Within the hour, she will be dead, and the doctor who guided her through those 2 days will spend 3 months unable to live with what happened before taking his own life. This is the story of Princess Charlotte of Wales, the heir the whole country adored, whose death in a country house may have been entirely preventable, and whose loss quietly rewrote the succession of the British throne for the next 100 years. To understand her life, you have to start with the marriage that produced it, because that marriage was a disaster from the first minute. In the 1790s, George, Prince of Wales, the future George IV, was drowning in debt, and Parliament made the price of rescue plain: marry and your finances will be settled. So George, motivated almost entirely by money, agreed to marry his first cousin, Caroline of Brunswick, a woman he had never met. When she arrived, he took one look at her, turned to a companion, said he felt unwell, and asked for a brandy. They had been in the same room for about a minute. The wedding went ahead anyway, in April 1795, with the groom, by several accounts, drunk. The marriage collapsed within weeks, but exactly 9 months later, on January 7, 1796, Caroline gave birth to a daughter, Charlotte. From the moment she drew breath, she was heir to the throne, and from that same moment, she became the object of a custody war between two parents who despised each other. 3 days after her birth, her father drew up a will, leaving everything to a secret former love, leaving his wife exactly 1 shilling and specifying that Caroline should have no part in raising their child. That single shilling tells you almost everything about the household Charlotte was born into. What followed was a childhood of control. Charlotte was moved between royal residences, kept in the company of governesses and tutors who were dismissed the moment they grew too fond of her or too friendly with her mother. She had almost no friends her own age. By 15, the heir to the British Empire had never seen a play or an opera. This isolation was not an accident of her parents' separation. It was, to a large extent, deliberate. Her father feared she had inherited what he saw as her mother's instability, and he believed the answer was to manage her, tightly and permanently. It is the pattern this channel keeps returning to: a royal family that could not simply let one of its own be a person, and kept her carefully out of reach of the ordinary world she was one day meant to rule. Predictably, the more they controlled her, the harder she pushed back. The breaking point came over marriage. Her father arranged a match with William, the hereditary Prince of Orange, a tidy diplomatic alliance that would have sent Charlotte to live part of each year in the Netherlands. She signed the agreement, then refused it outright. She had no intention of leaving Britain, and she had, by then, met someone else, a quiet, serious young German prince named Leopold of Saxe-Coburg. When her father responded by dismantling her household and confining her, Charlotte did something no heir to the throne was supposed to do. On the night of June 12, 1814, she walked out into the London streets, hailed a public cab off the road, and drove alone to her mother's house. It took a procession of politicians and royal relatives half the night to persuade her to come back. She went back, but she never surrendered the one point that mattered. She would not marry the Prince of Orange, and eventually, because it suited her father's interests too, she was allowed to have Leopold instead. They married in May 1816. For the first time in her life, Charlotte had chosen something for herself, and the country, which had watched her be pushed around for 20 years, celebrated in the streets. The 2 years that followed at Claremont were the only years that were entirely hers. She furnished her drawing room with Spitalfield silk on purpose to support British weavers who were struggling. She gave money to the local poor. She was, visibly and without performing it, happy, and the public felt it as if her happiness were partly their own. Then, in the autumn of 1817, she was pregnant, and the whole nation waited. The doctor placed in charge was Sir Richard Croft, one of the most fashionable accoucheurs in the country. Croft managed the pregnancy according to the medical fashion of the day. He restricted her diet for months to keep the baby small. He relied on bloodletting. By the time labour began, Charlotte was already weakened. It lasted 50 hours. The child was badly positioned, and Croft, aware that the whole country was watching him, hesitated at the moments when a more decisive doctor might have acted. On the evening of November the 5th, the baby was delivered stillborn. A few hours later, Charlotte began to hemorrhage, and her depleted body had nothing left to survive it. Now, it has to be said carefully, because this is where hindsight becomes dangerous. No one can prove her death was preventable. The medicine of 1817 was crude, and judging Croft by what we know now is unfair to what he could have known then. But even by the standards of his own time, his management has been criticized as too cautious at exactly the moments that called for action, and some of his contemporaries thought so too. What we do know is that Croft himself could not bear it. 3 months later, while attending another difficult birth, he shot himself. Charlotte, her stillborn son, and her doctor. Contemporaries called it the triple tragedy. The grief that followed was unlike anything Britain had seen. Shops closed without being told to. Churches of every denomination filled with people who had never met her. Even the poorest wore scraps of black. A memorial fund drew donations from people who could barely afford to eat, including a child who gave sixpence. Historians have compared it more than once to the mourning for Princess Diana in 1997, and the comparison holds in the one way that matters. This was grief for someone the whole country genuinely felt it knew. And her death changed everything that came after. Charlotte had been the only legitimate grandchild of George III, young enough to secure the next generation. With her gone, the aging royal dukes scrambled to marry and produce an heir. One of them, the Duke of Kent, married Leopold's own sister. Their daughter, born 18 months after Charlotte died, was named Victoria. Had Charlotte lived, Victoria would almost certainly never have been queen. The entire Victorian age, the empire, the name, the century we still label after her, all of it flows from the fact that a 21-year-old woman died in a house in Surrey on a November night, having finally, briefly, got the life she wanted. If this story stayed with you, the next one on this channel goes to another royal death the palace was determined to control, and the private notes that revealed 50 years too late, exactly what one doctor did in the room. Subscribe if you want to keep following these stories as they come out, and tell me in the comments, was Charlotte's death the honest limit of what medicine could do in 1817, or a failure that everyone was too afraid to name?